Hello and welcome to Stampscaping 101. We have set number 24 here. This is nature set number 24. And it's full of moons, and I filled it in with some little birds here on the side in case you want to have kind of a dramatic look of some birds flying against a nighttime sky. I just had a little bit of space there. I tend to fill it in these days with, additional stamps like that. But this set is focused around one of my favorite types of, I don't know, imagery within scenes, and that's a little moon. Okay, now if the moon doesn't have this kind of crater-like look to it, there's no reason why all of these can't be suns. You would just change your color scheme around from stamping it out in something like a black or a blue or something like that, kind of a cool night sky to something very warm. Actually, this one's called hot sun, but you can make the hot sun into a moon. And that's the same way. These aren't kind of the the radiating crepuscular ray types of suns right here, in terms of the orbs here. So, anyways, mix and match, switch out and use them for whatever type of imagery you want, night or day. Okay, now let's go into how to use these stamps. Now, I mean, for a lot of you, this doesn't need explanation, but what I have on Stampscape stamps are transition zones, okay? Now that's different from a lot of types of imagery that you might see from other companies that are kind of more outline-based, okay? Like a moon might be kind of a circle, okay? And it might look like something like this here, but without the surrounding area on here. So the moon itself is just like an orb, and it's designed to be a circle in the sky. And if it's a moon, it'll have that texture on it, typically with craters and things like that. But what I like to do in Stampscapes is I like to design things and to minimize linear types of aspects to it. I find that lines kind of, I have to use them occasionally, but if you want kind of the ease of transition of merging stamps into one another, you can't have those lines, unless you're going to be doing a lot of masking. Otherwise, if you overlap outlines, you're going to have these outlines kind of running into one another, okay? I want kind of more seamless transitions, but to have it in a very easy way. Okay, now that being said, I do transition these out from the use of kind of heavy condensed dots into kind of more spread out ones. I taper them, okay? But there's a little trick to doing these. This is to make all of our lives much easier. I use my stamps as much as anyone does, okay? There are some people that use them more than I do, okay? But I'm right up there as far as users go, and believe me, I design my stamps accordingly to make my life a lot easier. So if I, in my early years, of designing stamps like 30 years ago, I would refine my kind of methodology and techniques because I would say, okay, if I don't have this in the design next time, then I won't have to do an extra step. So I'm all about kind of the removal of additional steps when it comes to the usage of the stamps, okay? I just want things nice and easy, okay? So I just stamped out in a dye-based dark blue this is on glossy cardstock. You can do everything that I teach right here will apply to either matte or glossy, okay? All right, so everything's kind of transitioning out like that. Let's get to another design as well. I'm not gonna do this with the idea of creating a scene so much as kind of demonstrating the concept of how to use these, okay? And I'll show you the differences here. Now, I can just do it the way I'm doing it, but I'm gonna show you something that's going to make kind of the usage of the stamp a little bit easier. I think I need to switch out my dark blue Marvy pad. I have some 30-year-old, approximately 30-year-old stamp pads here, and this one's starting to crumble on me. 30 years isn't too bad as far as the life of a pad. Okay, now that is soft light. That one's glowing orb, okay? Things kind of transition out like that, okay? But let me show you a little technique. Let me switch pads here. This one is toast. Let me grab another very dark blue pad. You could stamp these in a much lighter blue, and it gives you kind of more of an airy, light look, and that is good too. Or like I said, if I stamped it out in, you know, orange or something like that, there's no reason why it can't represent a sun or something like that. You would do it in a warm tone or something like that. Or, I don't know, you can do it in blue and then put a little bit of yellow in there. Sun, okay? All right, so let's get this stamped out again here. Okay, now we're going to do a little compare contrast impression right here, okay? All right, so here's my transition zones. Here's the main area right in here, and then I move it away from my kind of center of focus right there. And what I'm just doing is I'm just taking a paper towel, and see I'm not completely taking off all the ink, but what I'm doing is I am kind of tapering it without even changing inks, okay? You could put a lighter blue out here, but instead of that, which is much easier, just ink it up in one color, dab it off around the edge, and what do you have? You have this wet to dry transition zone. The drier areas out there will stamp lighter because there's less ink. So let's take a look and see what this impression looks like. With just that minimal, it takes like 3 seconds to do. All right, now this is a darker ink right here, but all right, let's take a look here. Do you see? This is a darker ink to begin with, but look at this. It almost just disappears there. See, this one right here has a little bit of a harder edge. This one here starts off with a darker blue, but look at the comparison between those two edges. I could have taken off even more there, but see how it transitions like that? Okay, now I'm saying this because we're going to bring in additional tone around here, okay? And if this kind of just tapers off to nothing, that's not going to leave me with this harsh edge there that I have to blend in, which I can do, but this just makes it so much faster. Okay, let's do it with this one. Okay, go like this. This Prussian blue from Marvy is one of my favorite blues. But okay, now this isn't just for moons. I have nighttime sky things, Milky Ways, Starbirth, galaxies, etc. You use this technique for all of them, okay? So just soften the edge like that. And let's take a look at this one. Now this one has less, there's less kind of tonal density to it anyways, inherently, okay? But let's take a look at these two impressions right here. Now, I mean, it's subtle. It's not like, oh my gosh, that is so different there, but see that? I mean, you can see these, these dots here a little bit stronger, okay? But right over here, it just kind of tapers off. See that right there? Now, that little type of technique like that, I mean, it's not going to save a vast amount of time, but it does save some time from having blended it. Let me show you this transition zone using a landscape image. Okay, this is just the Lakeside Cove here. Now, do you see these this tone down here, these dots? Okay, it ends like this. You can see it all down here. This is your tonal transition zone, okay? Now, I have that for a reason. And that's because, if we want to have kind of a gradation of shadows, instead of having the stamper have to do all of that, the stamper is me when I'm using it, I just create this transition zone here. But, okay, if I stamp this out just like that, let me do it here. I'll show you the difference between impressions here, okay? Now, my Marvy pad isn't very wet. It's kind of dry, so let me see if I can create a harsh line at the base here. Okay, and I didn't stamp it out all the way down there. I should have. Okay, but you can see this harsh line right here, okay? I'm just in such a habit of not, inking up that area in there, so I didn't. But let's do this one again. Now, see, I can bring additional textures in here, but if you do this in a very light blue or something like that, you're going to have this harsh line across the bottom here in black, okay? Now, not everything's a transition zone. Transition zones aren't like imagery, like trees or something like that, where we're going to, wipe all those off or something like that. It's the tonal ranges of these stamps, okay? Like this in here and, the perimeters. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to take that, and what I'm going to do is I'm wiping off pretty good right down here, and then just a little bit less, and that's it. I mean, you can take off a little bit more, but let's get this stamped out right here. Let me just flip this over like this. All right. So see that? It stamps out much lighter than this right here, right here. I mean, I could have taken off even more, but see the, oh, but see this right here? Look at this shadow transition going from dark to light. See, I mean, you don't have to go with black up here and then color in gray down here or something like that. Or if you're doing trees, you know, you could, I mean, these trees could be green in here if you want to, but look at that transition right there. It's not that dark right there because it's like gray. And in order to achieve a grayscale, all you have to do is, which, you know, you just wipe off the bottom of the stamp. So you don't have to do it post-impression, which is what these transition zones are for. It's to remove a lot of the work. So a lot of times people say, oh my God, you make it look so easy. Well, I spent, you know, like designing stamps is a science, okay? You have to kind of designate certain kind of tonal weight and solids and tapered areas accordingly, okay? And that removes the need for so much work afterwards. So when you're done with these things, it looks like, oh my God, that looks like a lot of work, or you make it look so easy. Well, it's in the designs themselves, okay? I've just constantly refined the thing in order to achieve the looks that we're going for with minimal effort, okay? But it's just, you know, something like that. You know, the process is, you know, instead of just inking something up and stamping it out, you ink it up and you just go like this, okay? And then you stamp it out. It's like a 3-second thing, but that type of thing saves me, I don't know, it might save me a minute later, okay? And that's, you know, a minute doesn't take a long time, but when we're talking about, you know, a 2-second process, you know, 1, 2, 3, I don't know, 3-second process to save you 60 seconds later or more, you know, it depends how harsh kind of the lines are around the edges. You know, that's time. And there's a lot of those different types of things, aspects to the entire process. So, you know, if you do that 5 times, that's 5 minutes saved. And that's just like one stamp or something like that. Okay, so let's take a look at these now. And let's just do a fill-in now, okay? This is just some additional dye-based ink. Okay, now if I stamp this out on the matte paper, I've been using things like colored pencils. You can come in here with colored pencils, you know, using a similar type of technique, but you're just using a different medium, okay? But the whole idea is to make your light light sources, in this case, it's the moons, the lightest thing in the sky, right? Now they're not, because I have this all area around it that's much lighter than that source right there. Or it's the same, you know, it's the same tone, so it's not sticking out at all. So we're just filling in. But the thing is that when you're doing this, you're coming into the design, okay? Now don't tone out your moon unless you want to kind of, you know, have it much more hazy and less light. You can do that, okay? So I'm just kind of coming in here and filling in. What I'm doing is it looks like this, okay? See that transition like that? I'm going from dark to light like that, okay? I'm not going like this and up, okay, where it's a uniform line. This is harder to do right here because I have to use uniform pressure. This, I'm just kind of wiping like this. So if the side view looks like this, okay? All right? See how this is? I mean, it's these. I haven't, you know, started using the same color. What I'll do is I'll work up to that same Prussian blue that I stamped these at, and maybe even go to black. But I like to start lighter and then work darker. Okay. Now this is very dry on here, and see I'm coming in the inside. If this was colored pencils, maybe you use less pressure around your moon so that it gives you less of a lighter application of those colored pencils, which would leave a lighter mark, okay? And you would just go heavier on the outside, or just use the darker tones on the outside, okay? And use the lighter in the middle. Well, this comes together pretty fast like this, okay? And I'm doing 2 moons here. Normally I would do like a moon and a landscape down here or something like that, or a lake like that, and you could stamp that again down here as a reflection, or you can just have a lighter area down here. You'd have light source and reflected light. I have a separate video on that, but so this one's not dedicated to that. But if you're curious, just look up on your search window on YouTube, look up Stampscapes, and then say easy lighting. Again, many videos will come up with that subject matter in mind, but I just show you the idea of 2 areas of light in a scene, okay? And most of my scenes are based on that lighting convention, which you can use in, especially if it's a quarter-page card, you can use that in 98% of your scenes, and they're going to look fantastic. I don't know what percentage I use that in mine. It's probably that. So a lot of times when people see scenes, if, you know, no matter what I'm doing, they think it's kind of a different thing every time, but it's really the same thing that I'm doing over and over and over again. I might be doing it in different media, but it's the same kind of, you know, foundational goal. There's usually some source of light within the scene, and then there's areas of reflected light. So it looks like this, light and light. Sometimes the light might be here, and then the light, you know, reflecting might be bigger over here, but it's kind of an area of light divided by dark, and then an area of light down there. It's usually not like light and then dark over here. Sometimes it is, though. But I like that kind of visual dialogue between light and reflected light. It's really fun to do. And, like I said, it's in most of my scenes. Like that. Okay, this is the Prussian blue. And see, I'm just using the same little paper towel here. You can use whatever you want. Oops, that is really inked up. No matter. Okay. If you're using a super wet, juicy pad, then just stay in this area and use a kind of a lighter touch. Okay. And don't ink up as much, okay? You have to ink up more with your lighter tones because, you know, when it gets drier on here and you're using a much lighter color, you don't get as much coverage out of it, okay? Now I'm using the same paper towel here, so this is kind of achieving a little bit of a super saturation, so when I ink it up and apply it, you know, I'm not, you know, there's already going to be a lot of ink buildup on here, okay? All right, but anyways, this is an idea of that all kind of blended in. But look at that blue in there. See, if you use those lighter tones underneath your colors, it makes for a much richer end result like that. But look at that glowing kind of feel to it. And it's not just because it's on, you know, glossy paper. You can, like I said, you can do that with whatever media you happen to be working with, but just, you know, kind of have your darker tones on the outside. And then, or just, you know, you use your lighter ones as an undercoat. And then the darker tones, you kind of have it a little bit more perimeter oriented. I mean, I did streak it in there, but you can see, you know, this is more of the lighter tones kind of on the interior, close to my light source. And when you do something like that, when you create those transition zones of light to dark like that, what it does is it gives the illusion that the light is coming from within your scene, shining out like that, okay? I mean, it's not, you know, this is just, we're just working with contrast in these scenes because it's just a white piece of paper. But it does create that illusion like that. And I think when you do something like that, it kind of creates it's like an emotional kind of feel to it. Anytime anyone sees, you know, it's darkness outside, and here is a light source. It's kind of comforting, you know, as opposed to like a I don't know, like a horror movie, you know, where it's just 100% dark, you know, or something like that. Or if someone's like walking through, you know, whatever, they're lost at sea or something like that, and there in the distance they see a light, you know, or you know, someone's caught on a desert island. They see, what do they see at nighttime? They see a ship in the distance, or a light, you know, of a plane flying over, something like that. Or if there's a cabin, you know, with a kind of an interior light on, or something like that, you know, it's like, safety, or something like that, or a fireplace, or anything like that. Kind of that lighting is kind of a source of comfort on an emotional thing. So what you're doing is you're kind of eliciting emotions from visuals like that, okay? And it makes it even more kind of rich by having those base tones like that. Okay, so those transition zones, not to complicate things here or anything like that, but what I'm doing is I'm going from kind of darker, denser dots, tapered off to lighter ones, okay? On the edges of my pieces, okay? Like this one right here, there's a little bit more dots in here, and you see it tapers off like that. There's little dots, and I don't make them as dense on the outside so that it transitions out, okay? So it's going from light, or, you know, darker. This is my light source, but I'm talking about just the dots, okay? The dots are denser, so it's darker, to lighter out here, so that I can transition that zone in there, like that. The color, you know, the color additions. So it's going from darker to lighter out here, and then I'm going from dark to light in here, okay? Because it's easier to blend in that way, because the surrounding area is already kind of merging in value with the outside edge. You see what I mean? Instead of a super dark blue right out here, it was kind of a lighter blue where it's coming into that white zone, okay? Now that being said, I mean, I just stamped this out just as is like that, okay? With my crumbly little set. Now let's not even use, okay, let me show you what this looks like. Now I have some of those other tones in here, and I'm just going to use my same pad. We will do a little bit of compare, contrast look, and I'll show you what this looks like without any of those lighter tones underneath, okay? So you see in my colored pencil work, if you watch that video, I start off with the lighter tones, okay? And I work into the darker tones. I'm talking about when coloring, not the impressions of those ones, okay? So on this one, I'm just starting off with the dark, but I'm just, you know, I'm just showing you that you can go with only dark, but we'll take a look at the difference between this one that doesn't have any base coat of lighter tones and just goes straight into, you know, roughly the same, almost same value as the color that the images were stamped in, okay? Think about it like you're sweeping, you know, the ink out the door or something like that. Not with a push broom, but with a whisk broom. You know, we sweep like this, right? We don't sweep like this and then up and this and then up, okay? I'm not doing this, 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 okay? Which leaves that kind of harsher. You're going like that, okay? And that makes it much easier ergonomically, too, on your hands, because this is the natural motion of your hands. There's a lot of tools out there in crafting and stamping that kind of don't employ kind of the natural movements of one's own hand, okay? So that's another thing, too. Try to keep a, you know, conscious awareness of kind of the movement that you're doing. You might notice that I don't have my card this way, and I'm working constantly. I just switch it to the angle that's going to be the most comfortable for me. And if you're doing something in a nice, comfortable motion like that, it can potentially look much more graceful as a result. Okay, let's take a look at these two cards like this. I mean, you can blend this in, but, you know what I mean? See, I can't come with this super dark tone too close. Otherwise, I'm going to have, you know, it's just going to be a little bit of a moon there without any, you know, surrounding area. Oh, let's flip it this way so you can see what this looks like. Well, just take a look at the glow on this one right here. See the benefit of having that extra one or two values of or versions of blue underneath there. Look at that glow and richness in here, where this one doesn't have it. Now I can come in with this one too. I mean, you can go over the top, like say, you know, there's not a point of no return or something like that. Let me just switch out to this, you know, little area of my paper towel here. Okay, now I'm just going to ink this up here. Be careful that you don't tone out your moons, okay? Let me just do this on one side, and you can, you know, we can compare and contrast here. And notice I'm not, you know, I'm coming and I'm toning in over here too, even though we can't see it. It makes that blue over there richer, you know. I'm having a hard time not doing it over here because I like it so much, but I want to show you what this looks like here. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at this one. Let's take a look at this side. Let's take a look at this side right here, okay? See how it kind of, I mean, there's range to it, but doesn't it look kind of flatter that way? Now, if this was the sun, you wouldn't do it in blues like that. You'd probably do it in a different color or something like that, and you'd give a little warmth to that to give it the illusion of a sun. Or I mean, you could do a warm tone moon or something like that and put a very dull application of yellow in here. Don't go canary yellow or something like that. Or if that's the only yellow you have, you know, blot it off a lot so that you're just barely applying a little bit of warmth to that. You can give your moon a little bit of warmth. Okay, but you can see the difference between there and there. But see, these areas right in here, they're completely blended in, okay? And that's where your transition zones come in. I mean, this is a better indication of, you know, the structure of, you know, the designs here, because you can still see them here. You know, I just went straight into that whole area with that much darker tone. So, you know, this one would be better if I stamped it in those images in black, because you'd still be able to see them a little bit. Okay. Okay, so anyways, as far as emotional kind of tone of that, I guess while we're still on this subject here, let's do something here. Let's take a look at the emotional kind of quality that color can, how color can influence kind of the emotional quality of a given stamp design. All right, let's see. This is going to. Let's go over to soft light here, because I'm just doing this one because it's denser. Okay, so let's take off. I don't need to take off all this color, but let's stamp this out in a much lighter tone. Okay, so I'm doing it in that base color that I used on those other ones. This is Bahama blue here. I mean, you could go with an even much lighter tone, like a, you know, like a light sky blue, powder blue, or something like that. Okay, but I'm not going to do that here. All right. Okay, so this is a lighter blue. I didn't wipe off the side. Now this is a lighter tone, so sometimes the lighter tones like that, because it is inherently lighter, you know, and closer to the white of the paper than, you know, a navy blue. Sometimes you don't have to wipe off the sides, okay? But let's take a look at this here. Looks like I need a new applicator, right? Isn't this convenient? Applicators that you have right in your own, whatever, supply closet, underneath the sink or whatever. It's nice having things kind of on hand. Okay, now this paper here, okay, this is a glossy too, I wasn't quite sure, okay? So let's go in with this one right here. Let's see, filling in. Okay. I got little scraps of stuff all over my paper here. Smudges from something. I think it's on my paper right here. But what I always tell people, it doesn't really matter. You know, with all the kind of toning that you end up adding into your pieces. Okay, so that is that. And I'll show you something, I'll show you how to change the spirit of this, since this is perfect with moons around, if anyone's doing Halloween cards or something like that. Okay, so that is that. Let me get a little bit more right around here, okay? All right, now I could put another, layer in here, going one step darker or something of that sort. Okay, we'll just go with that for right now. Let's do that transition zone with this lakeside cove here. Okay, let's stamp this out in black. Okay, take your thing. Take your ink applicator to have your, I don't know, kind of ink removal tool. Paper towels work good for anything. Okay, wiping off the bottom of that, transition zone, right? And let's stamp this out like so. You can see my two sources of light within the scene. Well, actually, a light source and the reflected light, creating that kind of visual dialogue in here. Okay. Oops, I didn't press hard enough right there. I got crumbs all over my place right here. But see this transition zone right here? All right, so let's take a look at that. Don't look at that right there. Oh, here, since this is a video here, I'll show you how you fill that in. Okay, you mask off the rocks, and then you just go like this right here, okay? And fill that little spot in like so. See what I mean? In seed stamp, you don't have to worry about anything, Sometimes someone might do that and like panic or something like that. You might have to with certain types of imagery, like if they're outlines, you know what I mean? It's you can't just like slap something else right over the top of it without, using a position or something like that. I'm putting a little bit more imagery to the perimeter of this here. Okay. All right, so you have that. It's a certain feel to it, right? I would put other things down here, but let's just take a look at the kind of emotional quality of that blue versus, okay, now let's take this same stamp here, okay, and let's ink that up. My pad's getting a little bit dry here. Okay. Let me transition that, okay? This is going to save me a lot of time right here with black. I mean, in theory, it's the darkest color that you can possibly use, right? Against white. Okay, let's stamp that out. For large stamps, I usually stand up to, to take the, I don't know, the need for a lot of pressure off my wrists and hands and fingers and everything like that off. Okay. I'm getting very smudgy here. Everything's getting... Look at my fingers. Oh my gosh. Whoever gets the kind of the inkiest and messiest on your desk and workstation wins. I'm joking, but it's almost true, When I used to teach workshops all the time. I don't know how many people have been through my workshops, and this doesn't apply to everyone, okay? But usually when I saw someone's area was like looking like mine is right now, their pieces usually came out pretty darn good, okay? Now, it could, in a 3-hour workshop, and I'm the one, I mean, people help clean up a little bit, but I did most of the cleanup work. But I'm telling you, people that, I guess it's because they're, they really got into the spirit of the thing and didn't worry about things and, keeping real tidy and whatnot. But you can tell, the people that just got really into it, I don't know. There's something to be said for just kind of diving in. And getting your fingers inky. It's like the zen of stamping or something like that. Okay, now I'm just coming in with black, okay? I mean, you could come in and do this in blues and things like that. I'm just going to do this to kind of make a point, okay? When you do something like this, it just changes kind of the emotional spirit of, especially sky figures, okay? And moons, you know, have, you know, certain type of, oh, I don't know, feel to, it could be a romantic thing, you know, you do a moon in a certain color and whatnot. And it has a certain type of emotional tone to it. Or, you know, you do it in a different color with you know, some zombie walking in the background. You know, it's going to change the emotional spirit of that design completely, right? So I think kind of a moonlit night and a walk in whatever, Paris, that's going to look different than that same exact moon used over, you know, kind of a swamp, you know, with the creature of the black, you know, lagoon coming out of it. It's going to be different. So sky figures, you know, they really, especially like moons, they can really have a vast range of kind of emotional, oh, I don't know, meaning or I don't know. You're tapping into emotional resources, I guess you can say, or something like that. Okay, but see what I'm doing here? It's dark. It's lighter. It's a little bit darker in between, and then lighter down here. Okay. Now I could have stamped out my imagery before then, but I was thinking let's just do this first. This is a big area to kind of fill in just with black. Okay, I usually like some additional color in here. Let's do that. Let's make this look kind of dreary and stuff like that. Okay, let's take a distress ink, a peeled paint. How's that? Kind of a greenish, kind of eerie. You know, speaking of the creature of the Black Lagoon. One of my son's favorite kind of things, you know, growing up was when he was really little. I'm talking about like 1.5 was looking at like haunted house stuff. I think it's because the next door neighbor had this big old kind of layout in their front yard, so he just loved looking at all that stuff. Probably before he kind of figured out it was scary. You know, this is before he talked, so he just kind of grew up, you know, in those early years, really loving going to the Halloween store and everything like that. Yeah, it doesn't mean he wasn't scared a little bit, but okay. Now look at that. This kind of dreary looking, kind of emotional feel to it. I mean, that's different than that other blue one. And I would probably tone in here with some additional tone. But let's go with this same Lakeside Cove, okay? Don't think that the Lakeside Cove is like a, you know, scene, you know, a Halloween scene or something like that. But like I mentioned, you know, you got, you know, some, you know, Creature of the Black Lagoon coming out of there. I just re-inked this pad. Or, I don't know, I have some other types of imagery in my private collection from other companies that would go well, you know, in some kind of creature coming out of the lake. Okay, let's stamp this out down here. And let's take a look and see what that moon looks like in this piece, okay? Okay, I stood up this time to get more pressure. All right, so anyway, let's take a look here and here, okay? It's a different feel to it, isn't it? You know, I can put little birds or a loon down here. I mean, I could put a loon in here, but it would seem more appropriate to put something kind of, I don't know, like a craggy branch or something like that. It doesn't have to have some kind of, you know, kind of a Halloween iconography, you know, or something like that in there with, you know, some kind of monster coming out of there or something of that sort. But, you know, this one seems, I don't know, there's just an emotional type of feeling to this one. We can see ourselves sitting out there and relaxing on the front porch or something like that, or on the dock, you know. You know, I don't know, gazing out there. You can have a drink with you out there if you drink or something like that. And this one right here, I don't know if we would want to be out there. Maybe. You might think that it's like full of mosquitoes or something like that or whatnot. I could still make this one look probably romantic. I could put little lightning bugs kind of flying around out there and, you know, someone sitting out there kind of fishing or something of that sort. But, you know, creature at the Black Lagoon or something like that, or, you know, that would be kind of interesting in this one. Or a skeleton, you know, kind of bathing out there or something like that. It doesn't have to be kind of gruesome or anything like that. But anyways, the moons, okay, you know, they're a really, really easy source of, if you want to bring in some sort of emotional quality into your landscapes, okay? And these are made, you know, where you can use them really easily. I'll do something like this with these sets going forward using colored pencils or whatnot. Dye-based inks on glossy cardstock are just the most potentially dramatic in terms of the media retention on the surface. You can get, you know, really full saturations of, you know, whatever inks you're using, you know. The matte types of papers absorb the ink. I'm not saying those are worse. I've loved, you know, some of my recent colored pencil work, and I don't do it, but I've seen people with pastels love those, you know, chalks, all kinds of different media. What is that? The oxide inks, you know, are really fantastic too. You can get all kinds of different types of textures around your moons and whatnot, sky figures in general. Okay, so anyways, so when you're using these types of things like this, after you ink them up, okay, just take a paper towel. It takes, you know, a couple seconds and just wipe it off. Okay, now the darker you go with whatever inks you're using on these ones, maybe wipe off a little bit more. Now, if you're just going to be stamping any of these out in something like a, yeah, I don't even know if it would even show up very much. I would typically go with at least a medium tone, you know, color, as opposed to something like the summer sky right here. Um, I would use this as a base coat to color in around it after stamping it out. But if you go with something fairly light, you know, maybe you don't even have to kind of wipe off the edges because it's already transitioning, because it's already light to begin with, okay? But doing it in black or something like that, okay, wiping off the sides, you know, this one has a lot of solids on it, like right here, okay? You can just see it on this insert too. They're just the more solid or highly condensed the dots get, leaving you with a kind of a higher concentration of pure color of whatever color with. Those are the ones where I would really suggest kind of wiping it off like this, okay? I would wipe it off from the outside in like this, maybe, as opposed to inside out, because you don't want to you don't want it just to be light, you know, like, don't wipe it off like this either, like on the edges. Don't wipe it off like this and this and this. Otherwise, you're removing too much. It's an abrupt kind of transition of color, so, or ink. So you just kind of wipe it off. Just dab it off like this. You know, it takes very little time. Then you can take off a little bit more just on the very perimeter if you want to. Especially if you're using like a really juicy wet pad of, you know, black or something like that. You know, just take off a little bit more. You got to take off more the darker the color is, because it's darker inherently. But simple wipe off on your tones. Play around with different colors, play around with different times of day, turn moon into sun and sun into moon. It's very fun. And I don't know, there's all kinds of things you could do going forward. I would kind of, you know, bring a little pigment ink around there. You can make them look even like they're glowing even more that way. You can do moon beams. If you've seen some of my other videos where I just take a couple pieces of paper and create a moon beam like that, you know, adding pigment ink down this way from some common emanating vanishing point. And I don't know, bring a lot of drama and emotion and, who knows, romance into your pieces, or horror. You know, we're coming up on Halloween and whatnot. And I don't know, that's kind of taking things from, you're moving from visuals into kind of kinesthetics, in terms of kind of stirring the emotions of those that are looking at your pieces, right? And so your visuals become something akin to more of a, I don't know, it's dipping into a different sense is what I'm saying there. So that's how these designs are kind of drawn with that kind of in mind. We're going for some kind of stirring people's emotions that we want. We want to give people a nice card or whatnot, and when someone receives our card, they open it up, and they're not just viewing it, they're looking at it. You want them to have a kind of a certain feeling. So it all starts with your approach of things. If we just stamp things out, there's probably less of that emotional connection. But when you create this kind of glowing atmosphere or something like that around it, you know what I mean? There's just a better chance of kind of getting someone to that emotional place in the observation of our pieces, right? All right, so anyways, if you have any questions, drop me a note in the comment section. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope it came in handy. If you like this video, hope you like, share, and subscribe. Thanks as always for watching.